welcome everyone. Most of you know me, some of you may not. I'm Claire. I'm a general member of the leadership team at this church, and I'm also part of the Affirming Interest Group. It's on behalf of that group that I'm here today with this presentation. It is also Pride Month, as most of you may know, and so in honor of Pride Month, I'm here to give just a little bit of information on some of the terminology that is commonly used within the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, some thank yous. I would like to very much thank everyone who donated a pot of soup. That was lovely. It made us all able to have our wonderful lunch today. Everyone who helped set up tables before and who are staying afterwards to help take down tables, thank you. Brad Jansen for helping me learn how to set up the projector and the other technology aspects. And of course, Nick, our wonderful videographer, thank you so much. And everyone, all of you here today, thank you for coming. So, a bit of background. Some of you may have been here when Evelyn was here as a guest speaker during one of the services earlier this year, who gave us a wonderful introduction on the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. I'm just going to go a little bit deeper, delve a little more into some of the technical stuff such as pronouns and how we use them. With that out of the way, let's start. I'm going to be covering 5 main topics. The first, what is 2S LGBTQIA+? What does that mean? What is sexuality? What are some of the most common ones? What is gender? What does that mean? What are some of the more common other genders that show up in this community? What are pronouns? How do we use them? And finally, when someone you know close to you comes out as part of this community, what can you do? First off, what is 2S LGBTQIA+? What is this crazy alphabet soup? Well, this is currently the most common, or the most current updated version of the acronym used to describe the community of people who identify as otherly gendered or with different orientations than what society considers the heteronormative normal. The various letters in these are listed here. We have 2S for Two-Spirit, and I'm going to touch on most of these more in depth as we go on, but just a preliminary thing. Two-Spirit is our Indigenous Aboriginal brothers and sisters who identify as otherly gendered. This is a concept that they've had for a long time. L, G, and B are for lesbian, gay, and bisexual. These are some of the more common sexual orientations. T for transgender, right? Someone who is born in one way and has transitioned to present a different way. The Q is for queer and or questioning. Queer is sort of a blanket statement that describes anyone who belongs to this community. And questioning are people who are asking themselves if they belong here, but maybe they're not quite sure yet. The I is an interesting one. That's intersex. That's people who are born with a body that does not fall neatly into our categories of male or female. This happens more often than we think. And then the A can stand for asexual or agender. I've also seen aromantic be placed in with that. And the A describes a lack of. So for asexual, it's a lack of attraction, a lack of gender, right? A lack of orientation. And then, of course, the plus for and more, because there is an incredible diversity of people who belong to this community. And that's why sort of the acronym is such a huge jumble of letters, is because we keep adding on as we learn more about the diversity, about the different kinds of people who belong. However, what's more important than memorizing this array of letters, right? It's a mouthful. I tend to just say LGBT or LGBT+, as that's what I grew up knowing. And it's a bit easier to say. I'm less likely to get it wrong. What's more important than memorizing all that is being in tune with the people you know, learning what words they use, and just caring for them, right? Showing them love. And that's sort of the gist of it. When I look at all of these, what I see is that it's about love. It's about ways of loving other people and ways of loving yourself that society has deemed wrong or different or queer. One note about the word queer is to use some caution using it. Originally, the word queer simply meant strange or odd. It has been used as a form of hate, right? It has been used as a derogatory slur against these people. It has since been reclaimed by the community. The people here said, actually, you know what? You can't use the word queer against us. We're going to use that for ourselves. It's going to be our word. However, right, you're going to have lots of people who are completely comfortable with it, mostly younger people. You're also going to have some folks who are not comfortable using the word queer, especially if they have been victims of hate using this as a slur. Does anyone have any questions on this? In that case, I'm going to move on with our next, what is sexuality? Sexuality is a person's orientation. Sexual orientation is the type of person that they could fall in love with. The type of person that they could see themselves having relationships with. This is different from biological sex, which is the category that your body falls into at the time of your birth. We're classified as male or female upon being born. That's your biological sex. The most common sexual orientation that most of us know about is gay. This is defined as a man loving man, right? A male person who can fall in love with other male people. Gay can also be used as an umbrella term to cover all queer identities, right? A way of just, an easy way of calling anyone who belongs in this community. If you've got a little girl who's calling herself gay, what you've probably got is someone who is saying that they belong to the LGBT community. Probably not a man who loves other men, though that might still be the case. Next up, we've got lesbian, right? The counterpart to that, a woman-loving woman. A female person who can fall in love with other female people. What the heteronormative ideal is, right? What society considers normal is straight, heterosexual, attracted to the opposite gender. The men who fall in love with women, the women who fall in love with men. In addition to this, we've got some other ones, right? Again, this is the rainbow community. There's a whole countless combination of different colors of people who belong here. We've got bisexual, or simply known as bi, who can be attracted to two or more genders. They could fall in love with a man, or they could fall in love with a woman, or they could fall in love with someone else. A lot of these definitions don't have strict rules. Some people swear by the fact that bi means two and would only fall in love with either a man or a woman. Some people, it's a bit more fluid. It's two or more. This diversity exists for basically any word in this community, and that's okay. What matters is that we're caring for the person who uses those labels. Pansexual, or simply pan, someone who could be attracted to all genders, right? When they fall in love, the person's gender simply does not play a part in that process. Asexual, or simply ace, is a person who has a lack of sexual orientation. They do not experience the same attraction that others do. This is not something that just means they can't feel love. It doesn't mean that they are callous or traumatized. They're still capable of love. They just don't feel physical attraction the way a lot of other people do, and that's okay. Another way of talking about it is if someone says something romantic If someone defines their orientation as something romantic, it means that they are dividing their orientation into two parts: who they would fall in love with and who they would potentially have a physical relationship with. So something romantic means that they're attracted romantically, they'd fall in love with them, but not physically. They wouldn't want that physical relationship. For example, a biromantic asexual could fall in love with a man or a woman without necessarily having that attraction, that physical attraction that most experience. Is that okay with everyone? Do we have any questions? Questions are encouraged. Okay. The next slide is going to make a lot of us uncomfortable. And that's something I meant to say at the beginning and I forgot, is that a lot of this content is going to be uncomfortable. If anyone needs to leave the room, obviously you're free to do that. I encourage you to stay. If you are uncomfortable with the content, I urge you to lean into that discomfort. Ask yourself why. Why is it making you uncomfortable? And use this opportunity to ask questions and learn about some of the issues that come through with that. We're going to be challenging a lot of our underlying assumptions here, because the next slide is a myth-busting slide. So, a common misconception about asexuality, and these are all based on conversations that I have had with other people recently, usually my own family members. This one is, don't bisexuals sleep around? Isn't that something they do a lot? I was having a conversation with a woman. We were talking about one of my friends, and she asked me, is he gay? I said, I don't know. I know for a fact that he is attracted to women, but he might be bisexual. I don't know. And she said, oh, those bisexuals, they just sleep around. And I said, whoa, 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 because that is a huge assumption to make about my friend. Why is that? Why did that woman have that misconception? A lot of us don't know how to differentiate the idea of a sexual orientation with sexual practices. A person who is oriented a certain way, that orientation does not dictate their actions. A person who is more likely to sleep around is going to sleep around regardless of their orientation. All that changes is what gender of person that they are practicing those things with. A person who is saving themselves for marriage, right? Something that is generally approved of in the Christian community, I believe, is going to still save themselves for marriage, whether they marry a man or a woman, or someone else. Does anyone have any questions on this specifically? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so if we have questions, most likely someone next to you also has the same question. Moving on, what is gender? What does that mean when we ask about someone's gender? The gender is the identity that you present to the world. It is the filter that you are acting through when you interact with the world. A person's gender can match their biological sex. It can match the body that they were born with, and this is called cisgender. That's what most of us are. Most people are cisgender. A lot of people don't understand that word, so if they get called cisgender, they'll immediately be like, oh, no, 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 no. Because they hear the word gender, and they immediately relate it to the LGBT community. But cisgender just means same. Cis means same. So your gender presentation, right, how you dress, how you act, how you talk, is the same as the expectations placed upon you because of your body. When your gender does not match your biological sex, this is called being transgender. A transgender person is born one way, and they typically go through what is called a transition to become their other gender. There are two types of transitioning: social and medical. Social transition comes into play in your day-to-day interactions. Social transitioning is when you change your name, when you ask people to use other pronouns for you, when you change the way you dress, the way you act, the way you behave. This is all social transitioning. You're moving from acting the way that you're expected to, based on your body, to acting the way you want to, based on your identity. Medical transition is when things get a bit more physical. That's when you go through the process of surgeries to change your body so that it's the same as how you want your identity to be. Medical transition can come in the form of taking hormone pills. Puberty blockers are a common thing for younger ones. Top surgery, bottom surgery, things like that. These all fall under medical transitioning. Intersex, right? We mentioned this earlier, but it's something that a lot of us don't really know about. It's not talked about. Intersex is when your body, physically, when you are born, does not fall into those categories of male or female. There are lots of reasons for this, right? Perhaps you were born with 3 genetic chromosomes. Perhaps you were born with XXY, right? Most of us know that XX is female and XY is male. Maybe you were born with 3 chromosomes. Maybe the gene that controls the male development on the Y chromosome, maybe that's missing. Maybe you have that SRY gene on your X chromosome. There are lots of different scientific, genetic reasons for an intersex person to be born. Why we don't know about them is because most of the time when that happens, the parents will choose which sex they want their child to have, and that child will go through surgery to remove the unwanted parts. Or, in some cultures, that child is abandoned to die because they don't match the expectations, they don't fall into the boxes. Their body isn't right. But there are intersex people who are alive and functioning perfectly well today. So it's an important thing to talk about. Now, the lovely one that a lot of us get confused about, non-binary. This is when your gender identity, falls outside of the male-female binary. No matter what your body is, if your gender identity does not match female or male perfectly, you may consider yourself non-binary. Let's talk about that a bit more. Does anyone know what a binary is? 2 things, right. So we love to base our society and our expectations of the world in binaries. A neat little metaphor I've got here is the light switch. The lights can either be on or they can be off. There's no in the middle, right? They can't be something in between on and off. They can't be something other than on or off. Right? A dimmer. How many of you have this in your house? A light switch on a dimmer. Right? The lights are at full power when the bar is at the top, but you can move it down, the lights slowly get dim. Finally, at the bottom, the lights are off. This exists outside the binary of on or off. So maybe a person's gender is like that dimmer. Maybe they're somewhere in between male and female. Or, how many of you have colored lights? How many of you have lights that have settings that let them change color? How many of your lights on your Christmas trees have a setting where the lights flash and flicker based on the music that's playing? Maybe someone's gender is like that, right? Maybe it's a different color than we expect, right? Maybe it's outside of male or female, it's something other, right? Maybe it changes, it dances, right? There are lots of things that exist outside the binary. I don't think that there is a binary that doesn't have anything outside of it. So non-binary is when that happens, but with your gender. A non-binary person, usually, but not always, will use the pronouns they, them. This makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It's the big bad wolf of pronouns. The scary word. But why is it scary? Things are only scary when we don't understand them. So, how do we understand they, them? Well, it's time for a grammar lesson. What is a pronoun? A pronoun is any word that replaces a noun being a name or an object, right? We have three types. We have first person, second person, and third person pronouns that depend on who is speaking. So when I thought about this presentation, I didn't come up to Marlene and Louise and say, hey guys, Claire was thinking that Claire would like to do a presentation. Can Claire do it? That would be weird, okay? So I used the pronoun I to replace my name. I was thinking that I would like to do this presentation. Can I do it? That sounds a little more right to us, yeah? I replaces my name, so it's a pronoun. Same with it. I am holding the microphone. I am holding it. The word it replaces the noun microphone, so it's a pronoun. They, them, particularly, is a third person pronoun, something that refers to not me, not you, but a third thing, a third person in the room or outside of the room. Some other common third person pronouns are he, she, it, someone, they. So how do we use they, them? Before we touch on that, let's look at something more familiar. He, him. He gave his pen to him. These are all masculine, third person pronouns, but there are three of them, and they're all different. We have the subjective pronoun, he, right? The person doing the action. In the middle, we've got the possessive pronoun, the person who owns the item being talked about. And at the end, we have him, the objective pronoun, the recipient of the action, the person who is receiving, in this case, the pen. He gave his pen to him, three pronouns. This is normal stuff. We use these, right? This is not new information to anyone that this is a correct grammatical structure, right? But we don't really learn about this in school because as native English speakers, it's something that we grow up knowing because it's something that we use all the time in daily conversation. Let's look at another example. She gave her pen to her. This one's a little different because feminine pronouns don't have a difference in their possessive versus objective pronouns. You use hers sometimes, but in a different grammatical context. She gave her pen to her. Again, we've got the subjective, the possessive, the objective pronouns. Three different things for the same thing, right? It's all referring to a feminine person that is not you or me. They gave their pen to them. Now, this is the territory where, right, it's not as comfortable for us because we don't speak like this as much. But it's the same thing. They is the subjective pronoun, their is the possessive, and them is the objective pronoun. So when a person says that their pronouns are they, them, these are the ones that they would like you to use. Right? So if you're struggling on how to use it grammatically in a sentence, think, would I say he or she? Instead, say they. Would I say his or her? Instead, say their. Would I say him or her? Instead, say them. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, the lovely little tidbit that we all love to debate on. Isn't they plural? How can we use it for a single person when the word they is plural? And yeah, that's correct. They is plural, okay? You guys are all here today, and the people who aren't here, they are probably sleeping in. Great. Glad we got that covered. But as we've been talking, I happened to notice over here a lost pen. I definitely did not deliberately place this before starting, okay? No, someone left this pen behind. Someone left their pen. Anyone catch that? Someone left their pen. We say it like this all the time. We use they, them pronouns to refer to a single person, a single unknown person, all the time. Someone left their jacket. Someone left their purse. Someone left their shoes. Now the only trick is using that same structure that we say all the time For a person we know, that's all it is changing it to be for a person we know. So if you would all humor me for a moment, I'm going to get you to do a little exercise. You can stay seated, don't worry. But I would like everyone to look around and just find an object near you. Maybe someone's coat hanging over the back of a chair. Maybe someone's purse sitting on the floor. Maybe a lost pen that's been placed to the side. And I just want you to say, someone left their item, out loud. There you go, right? Pretty easy. Now, I would like you to say that exact same thing, but put a person's name in front of it. John left their coat. Susie left their purse. Claire left their pen. No, they didn't. But please, try it a few different ways. Try it a few different times. Name left their item. Name left their item. There you go. You guys got it. You're all naturals. That's all it is. We use the pronouns that we're used to using all the time, and we put them for a person we know. We put a name along with that pronoun. That's all it is. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay. That's something that we can do to practice, right? Just simply using they, them pronouns is an easy thing to practice on your own. And finally, the last thing, what can I do? When someone close to me, someone that I love, has come out as 2S LGBTQIA+, what do I do? Since Sherwood Park United Church is an affirming community, an affirming congregation, this is stuff that we all should be practicing. The first step, first and foremost, is just to accept them. Let them know that they are loved. The person who has just come out to you is probably terrified. People have lost their family members over this. They've been disowned by their family. They've been kicked out of their homes. They've lost friends. They've lost partners over this part of themselves. And they're showing an extreme act of trust by telling you this. They're probably terrified, so we need to accept them. We need to let them know that they are loved, that this is a safe place, that you are comfortable with them talking about it because you love them. That's the first step. The second step is to ask questions. Say someone comes out to you as gender fluid, and you don't know what that means. Ask them. Ask, what does this mean to you? Even if someone comes out to you as something you think you know, as gay, as lesbian, ask them what that label means to them. Don't just take it at face value. Ask what it means to them. Because there's a lot of fluidity in these, right? As we know. Maybe a non-binary person is identifying as lesbian, and you're thinking, okay, wait, but if you're non-binary, then you're not a woman, so how does that work, right? Because there's so much fluidity in these labels, it's important to ask the person what it means to them. Show interest, right, in this part of them, right? Ask what you can do to make them comfortable, right? Ask what does this mean for their life, right? If they're coming out as non-binary, and would ask if they're coming out as non-binary, ask what pronouns you would like to use for them, right? If they want they, them pronouns, or different, or a combination, right? There are other things out there. Ask if you can use these pronouns around other people. This person might feel safe around you, but maybe not around other people yet, right? They've trusted you. You need to honor that trust. We need to honor them. And we do that by asking questions, learning, and then respecting those answers. And finally, we need to be a safe space, and we need to continue being a safe space, right? It's very easy to tell someone, yes, I accept you, I love you. But if your actions don't back that up, the words don't mean much. We have to continue to be accepting. And how do we do this? And a good way is to modify the language that we use around them, right? Learn about their label, learn how they use them. Learn their pronouns. Make an effort to use them properly, right? This might go without saying, but if your son has just come out to you as gay, Stop asking him when he's going to get a girlfriend, right? It sounds obvious, but parents still do that. If they come out as bisexual, right? You have a daughter who's bisexual, and you're just like, oh, when you grow up and meet a man, a good way of modifying that language, when you meet a man or a woman, or when you meet a future partner, right? Oh, your future husband or wife. We need to modify our language for that. Anyone have any questions on this? One last problem. I was having a conversation with a lovely gentleman. We were talking about a mutual contact of ours who is non-binary. And I was telling this person about they, them pronouns. And he said, okay, that's cool, but this is too hard for me. I'm too old, I can't do it. The problem with this approach, when you say, this is too hard, I can't do it without trying, the underlying message there is that you're telling the person, you are not worth my effort. If you're not going to try for them, you're saying that this person who you love is not worth you putting in any effort for. They're not worth you trying for. And as we've seen, right, pronouns can be very simple once you actually understand what's behind them. Labels can be simple, right? You just ask what it means for them. It's going to be different from person to person, but know what it means to them, right? Ask questions, you learn. It's simple. There should be nothing that is too hard for a person. And yes, we're going to make mistakes. Learning someone's pronouns is not something that you're going to be able to do the first time around, right? But if someone says that they would like to be called they, and you accidentally say she, all you need to do is say, sorry, and correct yourself, right? They. And you do that as many times as necessary until it becomes second nature. It's easy, it's not that much effort, and all that's doing is telling the person that you care about them enough to try. And that's it, and thank you all so much for coming.
I just want to take this opportunity to say a huge thank you to Claire on our behalf, but also on behalf of the Affirm ministry team. We are blessed to have her, and she initiated this whole thing. She said to me earlier today, I'm not in charge of the lunch. And I said, Claire, you offered to do a lunch and learn. And so she knew that she was in charge of it all. But thank you so much. And I just wanted you to know that we have handouts here, and we have copies of the definitions that you can take away with you. Yeah, so please help yourself. Thank you, love.
Thank you, Louise.
Can I give you a hug? Yeah. We're all done.
Thank you.